Hey there! Today I thought what we would do is talk a little bit about a pen-related topic without actually reviewing a pen. Sip a hot chocolate. Once in a while I do that. Not sipping hot chocolate, but also once in a while I do that, actually. Once in a while I just talk about things that are on my mind, but that are pen-related. And I found that those videos have fairly good viewership and people seem to enjoy it. So I thought that what I would talk about today is a topic that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And I've, at some point, I know, answered a question about it and consult the doctor. But it's a question that comes up with some regularity a couple times a year on my channel. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about. And that topic is, what is the future of fountain pens? And I think it's an interesting topic to think about because fountain pens have been around for a long time, right? And they have certainly undergone some changes throughout I guess we're slowly getting to the stage where we can say ages, but certainly decades and decades they've been around. And I was reminded of a quote from my favorite Flemish chef, Johan Segers, who said every era has its evolutions and revolutions, and that's what makes things beautiful. And I think that's a very nice way of looking at things. That applies to, I believe, everything in life, and that certainly applies to fountain pens as well. They go through evolutions and revolutions. But the evolution part is interesting. Certainly we have seen evolution, the evolution of the pen. Fountain pens have gone through some radical changes early on. But I also feel that that era is behind us. And that brings me to a quote from another chef that I really like, Marco Pierre White, who said, "We don't live in an age of invention, we live in an age of refinement." And that I think is true as well. We've had the major evolutions. We've had the major breakthrough of what a fountain pen feed should look like. And now every company uses a feed that looks a lot like that. We've certainly had evolutions in the ways of filling systems. But we seem to have kind of settled. And at the end of the day, a fountain pen is a fairly, I don't want to say simple, but there's only so many parts on a pen, right? The nib is vital. The feed is vital. The ink delivery system might matter to some people, but to others it doesn't matter so much. And at the end of the day, it's just a reservoir that holds ink, whether there's a cartridge or a converter or an actual reservoir operated by a piston, or whether it's something fancy or fancier like a vacuumatic system or maybe something like the Conid system, which is a very interestingly engineered system. But at the end of the day, these are all just systems to draw up ink, or at the very least hold ink, and that's it, right? So I'm not sure if we're ever going to see a true evolution anymore in the way ink is delivered to the feed. I mean, you could say that, say Conid. This is not a commercial for Conid, but I mean, they designed a filling system that was quite revolutionary, right? With the way it sort of folds in. It doesn't really fold in itself, but the way it works really maximizes ink capacity, and that's very cool. But what is there beyond that? What else can you do? Beyond an electric system where you plug your pen into a wall socket and then you hold in a bottle of ink that'll automatically suck up ink electronically. Maybe I should invent that. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? What I'm trying to say is I don't know how much there is to improve. And something similar can be said for nibs. A nib is a nib. And there are interesting people. Monty Winfield is an interesting company that does fancy stacked nibs. I'm pretty sure they're in the US. There is Salamander nibs in Canada. They do something similar where they stack nibs, and that's cool, and I'm not making light of that. It's a very interesting endeavor that allows for different kinds of line variation, different things you might want to try. Nibs you can flip over and write with in different ways. But at the end of the day, and again, this is not to minimize the creativity there, but they're still nibs. They're nibs made of steel or precious metal, and they allow you to write. Right? So I don't really see any massive evolutions there. And I have talked in the past about trends in the pen world, and I've said this a number of times, so I'll try to be brief. But when I got into pens, which was about 2010 that I got serious into fountain pens, flex nibs were the thing. Everybody wanted flex nibs. The flexier, the better. Vintage wet noodles, but also modern pens like Noodless. Noodless was really sort of up and coming at that time, and they released the nib creeper, and everybody wanted flex nibs. And then there were different trends. You got shading inks. Everybody wanted shading inks. The more shading, the better. And then it became shimmering inks. Everybody wanted shimmering inks. Every ink had to have shimmer in it, otherwise it wasn't cool. And then now I'm seeing a trend towards bigger nibs, number 8 nibs, and now you have other companies like, say, Magna Carta. They're working with number 10 nibs, even bigger. At some point, you're going to get number 12 nibs, and the number 20 nibs, and the number 40 nibs, and at some point, the nib is so big that you need to hook it up to your car to be able to write with it. In a nutshell. And then you have feeds, and feeds people have tried to do different things with as well. I remember a couple of years ago, Armando Simoni Club, now the pen family, started to work with, I want to say, aluminum, or if you prefer, aluminium. I'm pretty sure that was the material, but I could be wrong. In any case, it was a metal feed. That was interesting, because feeds typically are plastic or they're ebonite, but they're usually not metal. So it was an interesting development. But at the end of the day, it was just a feed. Again, I'm not criticizing the creativity of that invention, but it was just another feed. And then I would say there are other interesting things that I've seen sort of maybe come and go. You had that paper at some point, Scribsy, but that allowed you to digitize your writing. So really it was a matter of you would just write and then you would take pictures of it, but the paper was designed with specific markers so that your writing was digitized. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's not very different from just taking pictures of your writing, except that paper was set up to do it, and you got kind of nice, clean, cleanly, what do you call that, cropped picture, so you just had the paper in it and not the background. Lamy has done something, right, with what was that pen called? The Nex or Nexium or whatever. They had this, I reviewed it at some point. It was not a fountain pen, it was a rollerball, but it would digitize your writing. And I thought that was actually pretty clever because it would actually digitize your writing. And you could even do optical character recognition. So it could actually turn your handwritten notes into typed notes, which is cool. You did need special notebooks for it, though, that were actual paper, but it was special paper. It didn't work on non-Lamy, whatever that thing was called. Sorry, that I can't remember. But those notebooks, it would only work on those notebooks, and you need an app and all that stuff. But it's kind of cool. I also remember that at some point, this is really like Grandpa tells a story. I remember at some point, St. Dupont had I think a version of, I want to say the Studio D, but I could be wrong. They had a pen where you could just pull off a part of the barrel, and then you had a USB drive, so you had actual like a memory stick that you could put stuff on. That's interesting because it has nothing to do with pens, but the idea, of course, being, well, you have a pen, you have a laptop, you have these two things, now you have something to exchange files on. I don't think that was a particularly bad idea either. It may be a bit gimmicky, but it's certainly not more gimmicky than, say, a Visconti Speakeasy with an alcohol compartment. So all these things, I'm just trying to say, is all these things are evolutions and revolutions. We've had the major evolutions, I feel, but I mean, who knows? It surprised me. But there still are some revolutions, trends that change, and interesting developments, like digitizing your writing. It is a logical step. Time for a sip. So if you're not doing those things, then what remains? Well, there's other things I've seen come and go. Fancy acrylics. At some point, people started with fancy acrylics. Pen shows were kind of a lot of black pens. But then you got fancy acrylics. Edison Pen Company used it, and these days you have many companies that do that, right? Monteverde also does it. They have really nice, colorful pens. really the sky's the limit. That's one of the bigger brands, but a lot of the smaller pen makers, think of Jonathan Brooks and his outstanding resins. I think of all these different small companies, all doing super cool stuff. And now if you go to a pen show, it's table after table filled with highly colorful material. So, material. So we have that going for us as well. That's another, I would say, revolution. Maybe not an evolution, but it's a revolution. You see people start to trend towards these brighter, interesting colors, and that's really cool. So you have all those things, and then the final thing that I wanted to say is you have cool companies now, and that create 3D printed pens. I've been using this in the past days as a pen made by my friend William Shakur. I asked him if he could create something reminiscent of the Omas 360. If you don't know that pen, it's a pen that has kind of a triangular profile, and so does this pen, as you may be able to tell. I know it's a little dark here, but the lighting in my videos is interesting at the best of times. It's evening now, and I'm not really showing anything, so I thought I would probably get away with just one light to the side there. 3D printed though, kind of cool, larger pen. He doesn't make these anymore triangular. He doesn't want to do it. Was interesting hassle. But like I said, very, very cool. This is the cap, very cool profile. I love using this pen. It's larger, it's piston filled, it's a huge ink capacity. It's really nice. So that could be a thing. Maybe that's where things are going, that we move away a bit from the more traditionally turned fountain pens, and we start to move towards 3D printed stuff, and the sky's the limit. You have those really cool sort of double helix pens where ink kind of runs through. Very neat stuff. But maybe, and again, I've been giving a lot of thought to this topic over the years, and I still do once in a while, that I think, where are pens going? Because people ask me this, where are fountain pens going? Maybe they're not going anywhere, and maybe that's okay. And that's not me trying to be cheeky in it. It's just that maybe the pen is fine as it is. Think of a great white shark. Great white shark is fine as it is. You may not like sharks, but the reality is that thing does everything it's supposed to do, and it does it very, very well. So evolutionarily, there isn't anything to improve on. That's what you have. The great white shark is the great white shark, and it'll be until it goes extinct. And maybe fountain pens are like that too. You can make maybe small modifications, but at the end of the day, it's a nib and a feed and a section and some sort of ink delivery system, and there's a cap. And even the cap is not necessary. We've already seen various capless systems recently, and that's cool too, right? That's cool too. So maybe it won't really evolve beyond that. And I think that that's okay. So, there we have it. I hope this was useful. I could, of course, just open up with, I think pens are fine as they are. But that wouldn't be so interesting, wouldn't it? Because then you wouldn't get the highly interesting insight into the depths of my mind. A lot of stuff goes on in there. So this was my thought pattern. I hope I haven't bored you to death. Now, what I would really like to read is, where do you think fountain pens are going? And if you disagree with me, that's fine too. I'm not, like, again, these are just my thoughts. I'm not saying they're the correct thoughts. I don't know there are correct thoughts. These are just thoughts. So let me know what you think in the comments, please. I would really like to read that. And that's all there's to it. So, hope this was at least interesting, and I'm glad to see you later.